Hey there guys, I'm in Malibu this fine Saturday morning. It's starting to cool off. It's already cooler up here. People only have one sweater tied around their neck, so it's not winter time. Two sweaters tied around your neck, cold in Malibu yet. Fred has some music going on in the background. It's like piano jazzy music. He's trying to make this into something it can never be. So it will be a failure, but nonetheless, I'm going to show you some cool stuff today. Some of it really cool, some of it kind of a failure. But let's start off with this. You've seen pictures of this where Tam is sitting in a chair going like this. She knew this come out of the shop with Fred. I finally got around to doing this, and it's starting to come together. There was a lot of work to be done here. There's some flaws on here. They're left that way. This is a very meaningful piece of history and very sentimental. I'm going to take that picture of Tammy signing Fred and put this next to it in a hanger, and it will be very cool and remind me of a better time. In fact, I'm looking at the place she used to sit, and I think I saw something move over there just a minute ago. So next thing I want to tell you about is this is the 1950 silver tone junk pile arch top. I did a whole series of this. This came in pieces, cracks, everything. We put it back together, and it is California themed, matchbooks and everything. Tam signed this one on the 8th of November. There's going to be a CDLS, Cornelia Lang syndrome, family get together, and there's a little girl from Northern California that this is going to go to, and her father and mother and siblings can have a good time with something that Tammy is going to send their way. So the story all goes on. Next, the Chick Flick Teal Special. It has the pickup in it. It's got a great pickup in it, single pickup, and it's time to wire this thing up and give it some sound. We've got some aging to do here, but we're working on that. But the subject of this episode is what is kind of like a Parlor size shaped guitar. Now, you know that I have never thought much of flat tops, basically because I lack the skill set to do anything with them effectively. You know that with these junky arch tops, they have floating bridges. There's a lot of room for you to make up for something that doesn't have to be the specifications and the tolerances do not have to be what they have to be in other finer instruments. But that said, there were a ton of these kind of guitars made. This was the Starter. This is kind of like a first act from the 60s, but this was a K-made guitar. And it's kind of like if you look at violins, quarter size, half size, three-quarter size, full size, they had all these little guitars that you could like put in the corner of the cabin, and they're pretty rough and tough. And the funny part about these is they had kind of a floating bridge system, and they had these trapeze tail pieces, and then they would have this kind of thing. Now this thing is so cheaply made, but it has a plastic, everything on this is plastic, and you can take these bolts out and put a piece of something in there, cardboard, a piece of whatever you happen to have it, and adjust your action that way. But they fit right here, and you could adjust the intonation on where this was, basically like a floating bridge on an arch top. So this come out of the junk pile. It's missing tuners and whatever, but somebody came by that is actually a sound engineer and dropped this off and said, hey, can we make this playable? And this came with the package, and I was able to find this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to throw this on the bench. You can see that the neck is separating right here. Everything else seems to be pretty solid. It'll shine up nice, but I'm going to pull a fret. I'm going to pop the neck off. We're going to re-glue that once we figure out where everything needs to be. And then we're going to play with this plastic bridge and get this thing playable. So let's get to work. Guys, before we get going here, couple things. Always reach in, find out how deep the head block is up here where the neck attaches, because you're going to need to know where your dovetail is, and measure from the 12th back of the nut to the 12th fret, middle of the 12th fret, and then take that measurement and go middle of the 12th fret to here, and you'll see that this is where the bridge is going to have to end up. Now I put 2 pieces of tape outside the bridge, marked where this is going to go on that tape, and now I'm going to take a heavy metal ruler here and set it here, and you're going to see that this action is literally this high off of the top of the guitar. That's not going to work. So that kind of tells us what's going on with the neck. If we have to have some angle, even if we need to put a light shim underneath here to pitch this up and back. So what I'm going to do is I have a soldering iron here. It's been heating up, and I'm just going to go back and forth on the 13th fret, because this is going to be where the dovetail joint is. So I'm going to pull this fret out. I'm going to take a very small bit. I'm going to drill into there, and I'm going to find where the edge of the pocket is. Now we don't want to drill at the very edge. It's in a bit, and then we're going to put some steam in there and get this neck off of here. You've seen me do this a bunch of times, but don't get sloppy doing it, and heat this up. These frets are hard to find. Don't bend it. Reuse it if you can. Okay, when you're pulling these frets out, you're going to want to squeeze down and pull and yank back and forth. Don't do that. Just push straight down and squeeze it closed. It's got a little chamfer to it. Go all the way down. Don't try and pull it out. You're just loosening it up. And if you do keep doing that, at some point, it's going to try to pop out for you. You have to be very patient. Keep this pliers nice and flat against the fretboard. Okay, now we've taken a piece of cardstock, we're folding it in half. I've used the edge of the body up here and the bottom of the fingerboard as a place to put marks. I've folded it in half, marked all that out. I'm cutting that like so, and suddenly I have something that I can put right there to protect the finish by putting a little bit of masking tape here, like so. And because if you don't do this and the water is hitting and going underneath something when you're doing the steam, you'll have a lot of finish work to do at the end, trust me. Okay, next step, I have this old iron here and a hot plate in the background, and I am going to use a palette knife that I put under the iron, between the iron and the hot plate, and heat these up. I'm going to need to break this part of the fingerboard loose, this part of the neck extension, and I want you to know that you want to go in this way first, then this way. Don't try to go all the way through, because inevitably what's going to happen is these are plywood and you will get under something you don't want to be under. So go in equidistant. Notice that this will go about halfway where that offset is, and get this loose while you're preparing to drill these holes here. And I'll get my fret tools out here in a minute. Make sure this channel is clean. Be very careful with this, because you get a lot of chip out here and you'll ruin a fingerboard. That is irreplaceable. You have some instruments that will be entrusted to you, like this one, where there is not another one of these boards laying around. I had a visit from Fred, who gave me this. Look at that. You see, that is not like a razor blade, but it is very sharp, and it is set to go under here and go in smoothly. You see that? These are the size tools you need. Art Smith. Fred uses Art Smith. Okay guys, I got lazy here. I'm going to take Granny's iron now that's heated up, and I'm just going to set it up here for a minute, and that's going to help heat this up a little bit. And I've got this, and I can start going in on the edge here with this hot, you see there? It's going in. So I'm just going to get this started everywhere. And I'm glad I have this piece of paper here. And I'm just going to go around like so and just get that edge started before I flip over to Fred's. That's right, number 5, Art Smith. You get an Art Smith and a Wordsmith. It's a lot of Smiths, brother. Ooh, this is already coming loose. I can feel it. Okay, everything is starting to loosen up, and we've got the body press on this thing. And ooh, look at this. It is literally coming right off. Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see it now, Mommy? Watch me, Mommy. Watch me, watch me, watch me. Bingo. All right, guys, the neck has been off of this thing, and I want you to notice that right here there was a piece of it that had been broken off and glued. So this thing was kind of sitting there in kind of a cockeyed position, and it was barely glued on. Isn't it funny? It says right there, Helms, H-E-L-M apostrophe S. Interesting. But moral of the story here is the neck being loose and everything being as it is. I want to point out a couple things to you here. First off, if I put this up here like this, wherever this neck stand goes, you want to pay attention to this very carefully, especially if you're doing any kind of fret work, filing, whatever. This creates a teeter-totter pivot point here. Always remember that. So if I have the neck sitting here and I put it up here, there's going to be additional pressure here, less here. So this can rock back and forth. So let's say we're measuring where we want the bridge to be. So I've already measured from the back of the nut, center of the 12th fret, center of the 12th fret, to here. I've put the marks right here and here, and that's where the bridge needs to be. So whether I would use something like this that the person sent along to maybe put on like so, I try to avoid that. This was meant to have a floating bridge. That's why there's no marks here. So remembering that I have a few of these around, they show up, they're great for parts and stuff. This is missing a bridge. It's got a tailpiece, but the bridge that was here, you can see the outline right there, and it's this contraption, which is mostly plastic, and it's got an odd way of being able to adjust the bridge up and down, which is plastic, this way and this way. So what I'm going to want to do here in gluing the neck back on is the first thing I want to do is put a straight edge here, and you will see that I barely have any kind of room here. That right there is where the straight edge coming across the top of the frets meets where the bridge would need to be. Now I can tilt this up a little bit, but I don't want action like this. So what I need to think about is, how do I set this neck angle? Now I can go through a lot of issues here, and this is the way you do it. you basically take 1 millimeter here, you mark it here, and then here, and then come up and cut a straight line. And what that will do is it will pivot this way, so when it goes on, it will do this. What that in effect does is take this part and move it further away from the neck pocket here. There's a way to avoid all that. Now, let's say that I want to put, so I put the neck on, like so. And let's say I want to bridge it up or get this angle pitched forward and up a little bit. So let's say I take this piece of mahogany cut off and I move this up just a little bit and I put that right there, and then I set this down, you see that? And then I pick the neck up, but I don't, now this is the part I'm trying to explain to you. If I put the neck stand here, all of a sudden this whole thing starts to slip. If I put it up here, worse. If I put it underneath the body, right here, and I have this neck hanging, and this is snug. Now we know that the further I push this in, the more it pushes the angle this way. So now, with nothing underneath the neck, I put this on here, and suddenly I have gained, look at that, I'm right where I need to be on this bridge. I don't want to use that bridge, I want to use this bridge right where it floats, and it is trying to get underneath there. You see that? So I'll line that up right there, and what do you know? I can't get this underneath it up here where the strings are going to be. So what I can do now is I just pick this up, get rid of that neck, the neck stand here, and I leave this sit here. And if I glue this just like this with this in here temporarily, right where it needs to be, it's going to set right where I want it. Okay, I hope you're following me here. Okay, so I've zoomed in just a little bit here. I've taken 2 pieces of masking tape. That is a side that has not been torn. I put it up there. I do the same thing over here. Now I'm going to take, look at this, Chick Flick Teal Palmiro Junkpileguitar carpenter pen. You know where I got this? From the Chick Flick Teal Palmiro Junkpileguitar getting placed. That's right. So I'm going to pay attention to where the end of this meets the tape here, because now I'm going to take this back off. It's really important that I know which side was up here. I'm not going to put it on the bottom or on the top because that will only increase the angle, but I know that this is the side that goes up. Okay, I'm going to put that off to here. And now I am going to take look at this carefully. This is 16th inch mahogany veneer. So it's 24 inches long and it's about 4 inches wide. This is 8 inches where I come from. So I can take a piece of this, make sure I'm running with the grain. This has to be as wide and just a little bit wider than this right here. You see this? So I'm going to notch this right here, this part out, when I cut 2 pieces of this, or 3, whatever it needs to be, so I can lay these under here when this is glued back. So again, let's pretend this is it. I simply put this up against there, center it up where it's just as wide as it needs to be. I mark where the notch needs to be, here and here, and then I mark how deep that's going to be by coming in under here like so, and I can cut that out. There will be wings over here. This will be solid, and then after I glue the neck on, I can just simply slip these in and take up the slop. Now, why isn't it that I'm not using the veneer 2 and 3 layers thick? Well, because it's going to give, and it's my experience that when you glue a neck on and change the angle, inevitably what's going to happen is this part here will always pitch up because there's not the same strength under this as there is up here. So if that's the case, after you push those shims in, you can always glue this like this, because inevitably, again, like I said, when you're strumming, these will want to flip up and you'll get dead strings down in here. Anyway, let me get this set up and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, in less than 5 minutes, I have made 3 shims, okay? And they are a tad more than the thickness of this, see? Because inevitably what's going to happen is once this is glued on, these are going to slip in. Remember, this will be stationary here. It will be clamped, and it will have been set with this in here. Again, remembering that the idea is that without us putting something under the neck and creating some fulcrum point up here that we don't want, that this will be at a point where this bridge is right there. Do you see that? So when it comes time to take the clamps off, this part right here will be open and floating, and at that point we can take our shims. We're probably going to have to flatten this part down and give it a slight angle, and then these will fit in right under here, and because they're notched, they'll slide right up to there, and you will not even be able to tell that anything was added. I picked the mahogany because it represents a good color, and I have enough artistry pens and the like. See that? That's what we want. Now let's get this glued on and then we'll do the shims. Okay guys, we're gluing the neck on. We are using hide glue, and we're using good European violin luthier hide glue. Not the stuff in the brown bottle from the big brand hardware store. We want to keep this hot. It's best between 140 and 145 degrees. I'm not going to put glue here, but we're going to put it here and here. You have to work pretty quickly because you've got about a minute and a half before this stuff starts to set up. So I have everything in order. Remember our little jobber there that has the marks on it where we want to slide it up to, because we calculated all that early on. There we go. Everything appears to be solid. The heater has hot water in it just in case we need to get any bleed out done. And then of course I have pieces of leather, and I can put one there, and I have padded the clamp up already that I'm going to use. We're going to put a small piece of leather down here that goes on the heel, because we certainly wouldn't want to mess up that helm name tag that's scratched onto there. Okay. This stuff needs to go in the refrigerator when you're done. If you don't, it will mold and become unusable. It's a little bit pricey. I think you can get some off of Amazon. It comes in granules, and you want to figure out how to mix it to the appropriate viscosity. But once this dries, I'm going to let this go for half the day. We'll unclamp it. Do not put your guitar in a case, in a car, in a house with a mouse, because what will happen inevitably is it will heat up. The guitar cases are their own subject. If there's a gap underneath where the neck meets the body, and this is sitting up in the case on something, and it gets really hot in there, the glue will cut loose, it will relax, the neck will seek its own level, and then it will cool off at night, and you'll come in out of nowhere one day, and the neck all appears to be, everything's great, except there's a little gap at the front, and the action is through the roof. It will have reset itself by heating up and cooling down, not to mention what that might do to your lacquer. All right, it is a couple days later. Remember, we had the shim up here. We had the neck situated where the straight edge carried across the frets and ended up in the right place on this bridge that we dug off this junk guitar. And so what we want to do now is we want to remember, first thing, I'm going to make a mistake if I put a neck stand here and check what the neck is doing, because what's going to happen is there's going to be a hinge point between here and here. If I put the neck stand underneath the guitar behind where the body meets the neck, then we're going to be in a lot better shape. So I've pulled the shim out. There's a space there. I take this heavy straight edge and I put it there, and it is right there. It's right where it needs to be. So I need to fill in this gap under the neck board extension. I don't want to leave it there and just let it float. So I've taken a few of these. I showed these to you later, or earlier, excuse me. And now I've tapered this one down here because there is an angle here. So I'm going to slip this one in here, and I'm going to take a look where it ends up. And there we go. And there's still a gap there, so what I'm going to do is slip this one over the top of that one, like so. And I'm going to start to slip it in. And then right there it starts to get a little bit tight. So I'm going to mark this, and then I am going to saw this off and begin to taper this. So what I want to end up with is everything is snug here, but it's not pushing up, and that will line that up. Once I get all that glued in, I'm going to be great. Okay, while we are waiting for the hide glue to heat up, we're going to pop this fret back in here. We're going to be really careful. Got rest on the other. There we go, and we're going to use a little bit of this medium CA glue just to put a drop in here and there and hold it. Okay, because we used hide glue everywhere else on the neck, we're going to use it on the shim. So again, the shim has been cut to fit up around the dovetail. It has been tapered here, and where it comes into here, it has been tapered as well. So we've got the hide glue still in the heater, and we're going to coat everything here of both sides. It's about 140 to 145 degrees, and this is not the stuff in the brown bottle. This is the good European luthier grade hide glue. Now we got about a minute and a half to work with this, and I have a damp cloth just in case there's any bleed out. But we're going to put that there like that, and I've got a couple of tools that will help me push this up in here if needed. There we go. We're going to let that sit, and then we'll test it one more time in a day or so, and then it'll be time to string it up and do a little cleanup and send it back home. Hey, can you all hear this? That is the 61 Junkpile. It was a dual pickup, one like this. I don't want to rob you of this. There we go. 61 Junkpile. Big, thick, dual pickup arch top. This one's got one pickup. Ooh, I need to get back on this. Yeah, this one's going to be a screamer. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. Here we go. We're getting close now. I put a number of parts. See, they did a bunch of these. They were made by Harmony, I can tell, because I have the same thing with inline 6 tuners on it from the same vintage. And then I had a couple bodies laying around, including this one. Yay. So, ooh, I like that tiger stripe on there, but that bolt that's missing off that pick guard is right here. So, I mean, you can pick these up pretty regular. It just depends on how bad they were left to dry out. So, what do we do now? Well, I got a set of Martin Retros on it, and it's a set of 12, so it runs 12 to 54. And you might be thinking, oh wow, what is that noise in the background? Well, every time somebody moves in around here, they put a set of horse stalls in after they take the other ones out, and this is a repeat process. I've seen it for a couple of decades. So, what's left? Well, the tailpiece that was on there is still on there, but it's got not too much room to the bridge. So I have another one that is one of those with a configuration that comes off to the side and there's just a bar. We may see what that looks like. There's some nut work to do up here, because if you slip this one into the edge, the string picks up a buzz. So it's time for a little baking soda and some CA glue, because once you put it up there, you know, it sounds okay. So I can fake, let me see, Fred McDowell, Sun House, and who's that other guy? Robert Johnson. I did it on purpose, guys. So, what else is left? Oh, we glued up a big crack here, and there's another little one here. So I'm going to cleat those. That's the nice thing about these, is you can get your hand in there and put a big magnet on the cleat and one on the outside and get that done. But this thing is pretty good to go. Take it up to Fred and have him do what he's going to do. So remember, the takeaways on this is, you can typically find these at any swap meet in the metropolitan area for, I don't know, 20 bucks if they're tore up from the floor up, all the way up to, I really can't see somebody paying $150 for this. So when you start going to Luthier and they walk in and they stick their nose up and they tell you it's going to be $400 for a next set, do the math. Anyway, it was nice to work on this one. I can blow out next sets on something like this pretty easy. We're going to shine it up, put a little light coat of French polish on it, make it shiny, and then everyone will say ooh ah. And yeah, next time what are we doing? Oh, I think we're going to do an episode about the best, worst archtop. We're going to be looking at 3. One of them you know, one of them you would have had to have been around in the 30s to know, and then there's one that's going to be my recommendation if you can find one that came out of Japan in the mid 60s. And I think that is about it, unless we're going to hear a little bit. Man, you gotta like that. That's got Fred McDowell in it for sure. Cody Harold, you're the best. Okay, let's get out of here.